bitch.
How's it going, everybody? This is Dailies to Downloads. My name is Chad. With me, as always, is Erik. We are back with you this week, and this week we're going to do another round of our movie challenge series. And I asked Erik to watch Framing Britney Spears, which has been a very hot topic in the news lately. And honestly, I got into wanting to watch this based on word of mouth. My sister-in-law watched it, and then I kept seeing stuff about it all over the place, and I was like, well, might as well. It's only an hour and 14 minutes long, right? So
Yeah.
I was like, might as well see what all the fuss is about. So
Did you know that there was a documentary, or because people started talking about it again, and I didn't know why. I didn't really think that too much, but I sort of like old clips of Craig
the
Ferguson.
first thing I actually saw about it was a news link that was just basically telling what it was, which was basically saying, Framing Britney Spears attempts to, reconstruct the narrative around the pop star. That's all I saw. And at first I was like, oh, that seems like it might be interesting, but then I didn't think about it again. And then my sister-in-law saw it and she commented on it. And then I saw like news link after news link after news link talking about it. And I was like, all right, well, it's on Hulu. I have Hulu, so I might as well just check it out. So it is obviously called Framing Britney Spears, but it is a part of a series called The New York Times Presents, which is on Hulu. As I said, its runtime is an hour and 14 minutes long. It's directed by Samantha Stark, written by Liz Day. They are both New York Times journalists. And this episode of this series aired February 5th, 2021. So the plot synopsis is something I got here from IMDb, just to preface this. It says, Britney Spears hasn't been able to fully live her own life for 13 years, stuck in court-sanctioned conservatorship. A new documentary by the New York Times examines what the public might not know about the pop star's court battle with her father for control of her estate. It also explores the fervent fan base that is convinced Spears should be liberated from the conservatorship and re-examines the media's handling of one of the biggest pop stars of all time. So that is your plot synopsis. So because I challenged Erik, we're going to go to him first. So Erik, I know that this is probably fresh in your mind. So what are your thoughts on the documentary as a film itself?
As a film itself, I was somewhat, I guess, disappointed, and by that I mean it feels very much like, yeah, you mentioned the New York Times, and I think that is an important distinction to make, because they do have typically they're not this long. They do have like the New York Times op docs, and that's usually like you'll be 10 minutes or shorter. They'll typically get nominated for like the best short docs at the Academy Awards and stuff. And they all have like a relatively similar style. And obviously this one is somewhat feature length. For me, the thing I don't care as much about documentaries that are like this, where yes, there is like for me personally the personal connection of having grown up and knowing to some degree this coverage, this celebrity coverage, and this noise of everything that was going on with Britney Spears and Kevin Federline and the shaving of her head and all those things that obviously I was aware of, and so on that level there is, I think, a lot of fascination or remembering that time, and I guess now we're at an age where it's like now people are starting to make documentaries about people that we grew up with, and it feels weird to think about that in the same way that it's like, wow, it wasn't that long ago, but I'm like, oh, actually I guess it was like 17, 18 years ago. I guess that is a long time. I remember Crossroads, but but
It'll be a future movie challenge.
I've seen that.
I've never seen it.
Never saw it. Dan Aykroyd is her dad, and that's he's but he's not. Don't sue Dan Aykroyd. He's a good guy.
He's also not in this documentary, disappointingly.
No, and I mean that's really my main. Where was Dan Aykroyd? But for me, this kind of took the formula of it'll be like archival footage of like news clips or paparazzi footage. It's usually pretty tragic or very hectic, and emotions are running high, and then we'll kind of get a authoritative figure telling us like, almost like why the clip is important. Kind of, that's what's kind of bringing the story along. We'll get archival footage from that time period. Then we'll get a Britney's former assistant, or lawyers, or people from the New York Times are also commenting as well. And it's kind of stringing it along that way. So at times I kind of felt like it was a little bit not allowing me necessarily to think for myself. It was a little holding by the hand, I think. And then I started just getting a little bit tired. I guess also because with the New York Times angle, maybe this is unfair, but like I started thinking like, okay, what is this giving me that I wouldn't have gotten from reading about it? Of course, the clips of that are Diane Sawyer and things like that. That obviously, if you just read about it, wouldn't have the same impact as watching it and having it all. When you see, it's really building the case for Britney Spears by seeing how ruthless they were to her. When you see them all stacked up together like that, and how cringeworthy. I mean, you get Matt Lauer, which his public reception would change as in the past couple of years. So that was something. But I just felt like, regardless of subject matter, it felt a little by the book and a little robotic at times. Like it just kept. I started looking at that green shrubbery that they put each interview subject in front of as they're commenting on, and I started listening to the music because it would get different levels of tragic, I guess.
Right.
Not to belittle what's going on, but it did feel a little bit formulaic after a while, the way they were telling a story.
That, and you know what, that I'm glad you mentioned not to belittle what's going on, because we're not saying that maybe some of the points in this documentary aren't valid or aren't worth exploring, but I agree with you. Like, the documentary to me was not well made.
Yeah.
And I really didn't enjoy it. And so it focuses, before I give more thoughts there, like, it focuses a lot on some of the possible misogyny that went on in her career, and the lack of empathy for the whole paparazzi kind of swarming her wherever she went. But it's a lot of it's also about her conservatorship. And they even bring up the podcast Britney's Graham, which two females basically just talk about anything she posts on Instagram. Which, maybe we should start doing something like that, Erik. We'll just
that we talk about everything she posts on Instagram.
Well, we'll talk about everything Martin Scorsese posts, and we'll over
on Instagram. Yeah, I mean, no, why
I don't
not?
know if he's on Instagram. That's beside the point. But so I came away with this basically with two different thoughts. The first of which is that it basically spotlights that there's a lot we don't know. There's a ton of information that we don't know because they don't interview almost all of the key subjects.
Yeah.
They interview, like you said, her former assistant, and they interview some paparazzi, they interview some lawyers, and these people are basically giving their opinions, but there's one competent man in this, and that is one of the lawyers. It's the lawyer who I guess was denied the right to be her conservatorship lawyer. And he says at one point, he's like, he gives his thoughts on what he thinks, the situation is, but then he's like, we don't know what we don't know. And that is kind of the key here, because
I think his last name was Streisand, right? It's like Adam Streisand or something. It stood out to me. I was like, oh, what is this? Is a family
he was
member.
a flashy dresser, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I think it was Adam Streisand or something like that.
That's the thing. These people are rallying behind her, and the whole Free Britney, movement is really picking up steam now. But that, I got to go back to what that guy said. We don't know what we don't know. There's a reason this conservatorship is there. And we don't know the situation with her. Maybe she has a mental illness that we're not aware of. Maybe there's some other issue that we're not aware of.
Yeah.
We don't know. So for people to be like, oh, she needs to just be let go of this, we don't know the situation. We know one side of the story, and that's the side of the story that they're trying to present, which, as you said, is there's a lot of hand holding. There's a lot of manipulation there. And so
It seems like it's almost building the documentary could also be building a defense in the case itself, right? Like
it's
it,
it's
it, it,
clearly one of those documentaries that wants to like accomplish something. They want to be, they want to, I guess, get her conservatorship overturned. And that was the goal of the documentary. It wasn't necessarily worried about what how it was compiling the footage and who they were getting to interview. They just had a goal in mind,
yeah.
and they didn't care really about being impartial or telling both sides of the story or exploring the whole situation. They just, this is what we need to do, and this is what how we're gonna try to do it. And that's why documentaries like this can be dangerous, in my opinion, because one of the big parts is Justin Timberlake. They are painting him to be certainly a villain in this.
Yeah.
And I mean, what's he guilty of, really? There's, like I said, there's stuff that we don't know there, but he's guilty of trying to protect his brand. you know so
Yeah.
but they're editing these clips together, and the comments are combined in a way that is predominantly one-sided, and now everybody's out for blood. As you mentioned, Matt Lauer. Matt Lauer is, his reputation is already a done deal, but people are like up in arms, like about the questions that he was asking in this shit. Matt Lauer's career is over.
Yeah.
So
I guess in a weird way, like in a meta, like almost taking it away from Britney Spears for a second, like that stuff, I guess, was a little bit more revealing to me. I think because when we are inundated with all this like gossip and sensational news, we don't really register it until some time has passed. And I do think that some of those ways that she was being questioned in those TV sit down interviews would probably not fly today, or would be very different today, right? And
it would be different.
It would be different.
Yeah.
And I think people will look back, and I think that's important. I would also think that, like you say, like everybody kind of has their out for blood or their own opinion of it. I would have liked, like, the way the movie opens is that we're getting like social media videos from her fans,
Right.
essentially selfies, taking videos and stuff,
Right.
and talking about the Free Britney movement, stuff like that. And I'm almost more interested now in like you said, it's like a movement, which it's a movement that you can't. It's yeah, you can't march in the streets and free Britney of the you can draw attention to it, but I it's a movement for, it's totally a selfless movement because it's not for them, it's for a celebrity who they haven't met, and it's still altruistic.
Exactly.
in good in it's it's, I mean, they're doing it out of the
They
goodness
mean
of their
well,
heart.
but they're kind of clueless. They don't know the whole story. Like,
Yeah.
like they're not going to accomplish anything unless they had some damning piece of information that was brought to light in this documentary. And
I almost feel like this Free Britney stuff is almost now becoming her legacy, which
Right.
no, not on her behalf, but it feels like now I'm seeing it in a way, like you said, like I start seeing everybody posting clips. I'm like, what happened? Is she releasing an autobiography or something? When somebody comes back into the news in this way, and like we mentioned off air that, like, I think the trial was taking a new stage, restarting this week and stuff. So it does feel a little bit timed, I think, to that. Who knows how much closer we are to actually getting some kind of a verdict? And I think that's also, you maybe even need more time removed from the action. This is still very much in the news, and it's still very much an ongoing trial,
Right.
and everything.
Yeah, and we had talked about the interviews, and obviously there was a Diane Sawyer interview that was in bad taste as well. And that's one of the things, now people are like up in arms, like, oh man, do you see how she was treated? MFers, what were you doing back then when it was going on? Like, that's kind of my attitude. Like, how many members of the media who are, or fans, or people that knew who Britney Spears was, who are now crying a foul and being like, oh, she was treated so horribly, the paparazzi wouldn't leave her alone. Like, how many of you were part of the problem then? Because I was writing for 411 Mania, as we've mentioned before, and I was actually doing news reporting back then. So I saw the daily
Yeah.
headlines with Britney Spears and Lindsay Lohan and all those people, and it was never ending. And nobody blinked an eye because it was a headline and they wanted to get their headlines and they wanted to get clicks or whatever the case.
Mhm.
And now, all these years later, when the damage is done, that's my point. The damage has been done. Now everybody's saying, "Oh wow, wasn't she treated like crap?" Well, duh. That's like
And it makes you kind of wonder now, like, who are we giving that kind of treatment to currently?
right.
I mean, again, society is very different than it was then. So much has rapidly changed. But yeah, you do kind of go back now and say, okay, like how do we make sure this does not happen again to someone else? Someone was saying like, oh, I wish we could do one of these now for like Amy Winehouse, and like certain stars that were maligned
Yeah,
in various
and
ways, and
yeah, Amy Winehouse certainly was covered a lot. That was also during my tenure of news reporting.
yeah,
And obviously every person's different. To a certain degree, they brought some of their issues on themselves. Or they had pre-existing problems or addictions. But it's just like this has been going on for a while. I mean, obviously now people are mentioning Princess Diana has been coming up a lot in these conversations, and this is like the paparazzi and their relentlessness is always been an issue. I there was the one funny interview of the guy who was like, I guess was told, like, to leave her alone, and he was like, well, I only thought she meant leave her alone for that day.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So it's just kind of, they don't care, clearly, like it's they're going to do what they want to do. But on a tangent here, there was one moment, and I want to get your opinion on this,
Huh?
where they tried to show where the misogyny started. And I grew up watching Star Search, so they show a clip of Ed McMahon with Britney Spears as a very young girl. I forget
Yeah,
what age she was. And he's asking her, oh, he's like mentioning, oh, you're a very, very pretty girl or something to that effect. Do you have a boyfriend? And like they paint this as if Ed McMahon is some predator.
he started it, man. It was the origin right there.
And I'm sitting there shaking my head like, come on.
Yeah,
Like I can't tell you how many times when I was little that people asked me, "Oh, you got a girlfriend?"
yeah,
He was being a host of a show. Like,
yeah, yeah.
but what do you think? Do you look at it differently? Because a lot of people are looking at it now like that was like he was being he that was bad of him to do, to ask questions in that way.
No, but let's cancel him anyway. No, but
Yeah.
yeah, I do think like, but that does bring up a good point of like when you are making a documentary about a subject who was so much in the public eye that you have so much pre-existing footage to work with,
Right.
and it is about how you are kind of recontextualizing it.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, like if you saw that Star Search clip, you may not think anything of it. Once you are building a, and I don't want to say like building a case because it almost makes it sound like it's a legal defense team on her behalf, but like when you are building a story in a documentary, you are telling your story.
Right. In a
Um,
specific way. Absolutely.
yeah, how you put that stuff together. Yeah, so I didn't buy that, but even right from the start, I kind of then start um, getting a idea of like how this is going to play out. Like some of it, it's like, oh yeah, and everyone was mocking her, and you will see very vicious things, but then we'll also get like, oh, she was like on a question on Family Feud, and they were, and then here's Jay Leno and the David Letterman and all these people, and yes, like all of that builds a case. It felt a little redundant, and I think that the point was made without necessarily having to have such a barrage of that stuff. So the Ed McMahon thing, it does also feel like you don't even, if you want to see how she started, and if it's a biography of her, that's important to being Ed
Right.
McMahon when she's 7 years old, 8 years old, but to almost imply that was the inklings, the origins of this kind of you know turmoil and tumultuous life that she would go on to have. I think that is very dicey.
Yeah.
It all feels weird because, and then we also like go right into her old assistant going through the fan mail stuff or whatever, and it all feels a little haphazard. But you know what? I was thinking in a very strange way. I think a film that really does the archival stuff well. 8 hours, but like the OJ Made in America, which also takes someone who was so in the public eye, and we all have our own personal memories of that. But it kind of it recontextualizes it. It doesn't. It doesn't say like he's innocent or something, but it gives you a recontextualization of like America and race relations at that time, and using the footage that we all know by
Gives
heart.
you many sides of the story,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's one of the reasons why that one was good. And it's funny you mentioned that because the director Samantha Stark and the writer Liz Day both, like, I guess they made a comment that initially they wanted it to be a multi-part series. They wanted to make their own OJ Made in America with this, and
Uh,
get out of here. No,
I would be,
they
yeah,
were nowhere close to that.
I'd be curious just to see like what the other topics are for the other episodes the New York Times presents.
Oh, right, yeah.
I wonder if this is like the typical format, and you just kind of get your archival footage, you get your experts, and you can churn them out.
Right.
It almost feels like that kind of assembly line at times.
This documentary is like is helping to spotlight the problem, or are they simply reigniting it for the sake of headlines? Obviously, there's some people that legitimately want to see her free of this conservatorship that she's under, but at the same time, like, it's still, now it's a headline.
Yeah,
It's many headlines. As I was researching for the show today, I came across many different links. This person comments on it. This person supports her. This person like, it's a big news item now.
yeah, yeah. I think the story is not over, right?
Right.
Like the definitive documentary about this is gonna take a few more years.
Right, and obviously it would have to involve her, and obviously she had no input or involvement. And at the end, they say, we have no way of knowing if she received our requests, which is, to me, like a really sly way of saying that, like, Brittany didn't want to do it. And
Yeah.
now there's this another link that I saw. There's this theory out there. I guess on Britney's Instagram page, there's been like images of roses or flowers of some sort, and there were images of roses in the movie. So people have this theory that she's behind this documentary, and to get it out there, which is a stretch to say the least. And on that note, apparently she did release a video after this aired,
She tweeted about it, right?
kind of
Or
trolling people. Like, she was like, it was funny. She was like, "This is the moment you've all been waiting for," and then she gives her pick for the Super Bowl.
okay.
So, like, it was funny, but I don't know. Like, now you also have the Craig Ferguson monologue from 2007 is
Yeah.
trending now. I don't know, Eric, if you ever saw that. Like, I actually watched it years ago. Like, I had already seen it, and it's a good monologue, and he says a lot of really good things.
Yeah.
But it's just weird that these things are coming out now. It's not like this stuff was kept secret.
Yeah, I guess also this is the kind of thing where with social media and streaming and all this confluence of events, it can catch fire very quickly like that, right?
Yeah.
Like this came out last Friday, I guess, and by Saturday or whatever, again, it was a really big thing. And
Right.
in a few days, I mean, and also it being still an ongoing case is somewhat will keep it, I guess, a little bit longer in the
And
news cycle.
once nothing happens or changes in the case itself, it'll start to die down
Yeah.
again. And even now, the gentleman, his name is Chris Crocker. He's the "Leave Britney Alone" guy. I don't know if any of you remember that.
Yeah,
Eric.
wasn't that like the most
even
famous YouTube video?
Yeah,
Or
he's even come out and commented on this, and I guess was showing his support, but also talking about how he was treated after that video came out, and so on and so forth. So, like, this is bringing everybody out of the
Yeah.
woodwork.
I'm more interested in that culture, what it's brought out of people than necessarily the Britney, like, because Britney Spears. Do I remember this stuff? Like, yes, but I was never like a big Britney Spears fan. But now, I mean, obviously she was a huge, huge star. But I'm not gonna do this for the Backstreet Boys, right? I don't like the Backstreet Boys. I was mean to them at the time, and if they get a doc about what I did or whatever, it's like I don't know if we can do this revisionist this tale for some of the O Town, sure. Papa Roach, maybe.
And
But
like I should add, like when I was doing this news reporting for the site, I didn't enjoy these types of headlines. I just didn't. To my whole reaction was to it like just let let them be like
yeah,
like they're it literally not 99% of it was not news anyway.
it,
It
it
was
was that era of in the movie Paris Hilton.
Paris Hilton.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, which was bizarre at the time, but it was a huge thing. It
Yeah,
was always trashy and in gross, but I mean, look, I mean, it's not like we're living. We go online, go on social media, you'll still find awful people dragging people every day, celebrities of various kinds. But yeah, yeah, I mean I think that it exists still today in different ways. Maybe not the TMZ. I mean, TMZ is still around, but it doesn't seem to have as much of a stronghold. I feel like on
no.
the celebrity conversation like it used to.
I mean, I think people, I mean, take certain sides on where they get their news, and I
Mhm.
also think a lot of people, more and more people, are skeptical of what they see in the news.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know,
I definitely think there is almost like this. To get too out there, but there is almost this QAnon component now to this Free Britney movement, like the Save the Children, how all of the suburban moms are now tweeting about child trafficking, whatever. And you're like, what the, where did this come from all of a sudden, you know? And it's because like a lot of these things can grow very rapidly thanks to social media, and it can be very dangerous and bad.
right?
And you know,
People take certain things like this too seriously. Like, oh, it's a documentary, so everything I'm watching has to be 110% truth and the facts and the whole story. Like, it reminded me of a podcast that my wife and I listened to years ago called "Finding Missing Richard Simmons." Um,
oh
it,
yeah,
it it was a short podcast. It was just all about this fan of his who was also, I guess, in his exercise classes, who
yeah,
was trying to put together the pieces of why he became a recluse. And it got to the point where it was like a Howard Hughes moment where he had to go on the radio and say, "I'm fine.
hmm
I just am choosing to do this right now." Like,
yeah, and
and I feel like there's a similar thing going on here. Like,
yeah,
she's in the situation she is, and it's not like she's a prisoner. I mean, it's not like she can't speak. Like, she's on social media, so
yeah.
if there was really something amiss, I feel like
Yeah, and it
it was,
is funny because they actually had tried turning the Richard Simmons podcast into a documentary as well. I don't think it ever happened, but I'd seen like clips, mostly again like archival and the same kind of speculative about he's a recluse, he's kind of completely gone
the
off the
theory was that
radar.
his housekeeper was holding him hostage.
Yeah, all those kind of things. And in a lot of ways, I feel like this is a lot of these kind of salacious things are also uh, it came up with Michael Jackson as well, right? I mean,
Yeah,
obviously there's somewhat differences, but it does seem like that kind of the celebrity figure who's somewhat of a mystery.
yeah.
And is it due to mental issues, mental illness, or what? And how? And we don't know the psyche of the person, and they probably shouldn't be in the public eye right now. And they're probably not saying that Britney wants any of this attention. I'm going to say that it's brought about by this
People
chatter.
can't stand when they don't fully understand something. So like they come to these weird conclusions sometimes without actually getting the facts. And
Yeah.
that would be my message to anybody who wants to watch this is take it with a grain of salt. I mean, there's some valid points in there and some interesting information in there about the conservatorship, what it is, and you know, basically the timeline, which some of that I didn't know. Um,
Yeah.
but I guess we should give our thumbs up, thumbs down here, Eric. What would you give it? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
I would give it thumbs down, but I am pro Britney Spears' well-being, health, and recovery. But
Absolutely. Well, I agree. I agree with you there.
yeah,
Yeah. And hey, if she wants to be free of this and is mentally competent to carry on her life as a normal person, then I am all for it, and I wish her nothing but the best of health. Um, be, you know, I was always, a pretty, good overall fan of hers. Back when her debut album came out, this is a side story. I actually went to a concert when her debut album came out, which is not
Really?
something a lot of people know. But yeah, a friend of mine and I, we went to see her. Tickets were not that expensive then. She had not blown up at that point.
What
But
was the first "Hit Me Baby One More Time"? Right? Was that the
maybe
first?
one more time
That
was
was the
the
first
album as
big
well.
single.
Yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it wasn't even like, so I saw her in Hershey, and Hershey has a stadium which is like for big acts, and then at the time, you would turn it around and it would be the Hershey Pavilion, and that's where she performed. She performed at the Pavilion, which is basically standing room type thing.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, she's had a good career, and in many ways, it seems like to generations at least younger than I, she's almost like the younger generation's Madonna in a way.
Yeah.
If you thinking about oh, what was that movie with James Franco?
Harmony Korine. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Harmony Korine's Spring Breakers. There was
Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
scene in that where they had a Britney Spears song
Oh
featured.
my God! How are those women doing? How are the actresses in Spring Breakers doing? I mean, those are 4 separate Hulu documentaries. I feel like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but no, I would give it thumbs down as well. It's if it leads to a positive thing, then cool. But as a documentary, I don't think it's very worthwhile. Any final thoughts?
Just that I think that we'll often find that a lot of these pop stars, as they are very young when they hit major success and stuff, that there's often a lot of bad blood with their parents or
Yeah,
one of the parents or whatever. I even think with Jessica Simpson, again, in my randomly hearing something like she may have also had a falling out with like her folks or something. And there's always a sister in these scenarios,
yeah, yeah.
who go who usually go the Disney Channel route and try to have their own career, and it doesn't usually go the same way. But that's I want a documentary about the pop stars sisters who also had a career, went differently, etc. I think Jamie Lynn is doing okay, I believe.
We just that's a documentary that needs to be made. You and I will get on it.
We wish her well too. Maybe this clip will turn out to be in her documentary.
Well, for Erik, my name is Chad. Let us know what you think in the comments. What did you think of the documentary? Check out my other show, The Nitty Gritty, and we will see you next time.